Nonsense! Why would the Queen provide a lady-in-waiting for the concubine? My own ladies were irate. Amidst the shouting and chattering, Countess Eliza, who suffered from a weak heart, sank down to the nearest settee, while Viscountess Verdi fanned her and spoke in a soothing voice. Then she turned to me. Thank goodness Laura is not here. She is a fiery young woman, and would surely say or do something she would regret. With a renewed wave of chatter, my ladies heartily agreed. I sat immobile and silent, overwhelmed by my own anger. Slowly, my lady's fury turned to nerves. What are you going to do, Your Majesty? Are you really going to find her a lady-in-waiting? I sighed. I wish I could say no, but the king gave me a direct order, and as much as I dislike it, loathe it, the hierarchy still puts his wishes above mine. The ladies muttered and tisked quietly to themselves. I couldn't help but be grateful for their loyalty. However, that didn't change my predicament. A lady-in-waiting was usually of similar or lower rank than the noble woman she was serving, but Rose was not a noble at all. My mind spun. Maybe, just maybe in this case, it might be appropriate to find a lady amongst the fallen or lower nobles. However, even that posed a problem, as many of them lived too far from the palace to find on such short notice. I considered it for another moment, before turning to Viscountess Verdi. Viscountess, please send an invitation for tea in the gardens to all of the young ladies and women in the capital. Anyone of even remotely noble birth should be contacted. I'll need to settle this matter as soon as possible so that the king doesn't think I'm sabotaging his lover any further. We'll just have to hope that someone nearby accepts the position. Viscountess Verdi nodded and immediately left my chambers to execute my wishes. Silently, I said a little prayer to myself in the hopes that this would all be over quickly, else I was sure things would soon turn from bad to worse. A tea party in the gardens, and every noblewoman in the capital has been invited.
Rose was astonished. Cheryl, her maid, bobbed her head in acknowledgement, then continued her report.
Yes, miss, a real royal tea party, to be hosted at the palace by the Queen herself. I've seen the preparations with my own eyes. You can't even imagine how grand it is. All the ladies in the capital have been gathering in the grounds for hours. Some, I think, even took their place before the palace gate last night. I'm told the invitations were sent out yesterday. Yesterday? But I never received one. What about me?
Cheryl hung her head, no longer able to look Rose in the eye.
'Tis a shame, miss. It's truly a blight on your name, because even if you're not a noble, Miss Rose, you're still a person of great importance to His Majesty the King.
Rose slumped in her seat, quickly turning away from her maid so that she wouldn't see the tears in her eyes.
I wondered what all the commotion was about, Rose muttered, looking out at the palace grounds. I could hear the bustling and hammering as I tried to sleep last night.
Kaya rushed to Rose's side, kneeling and taking her mistress's hand.
The Queen is being unfair to you, Miss Rose. First, she declined a banquet in your honour, claiming it conflicted with the winter solstice, but as a sorry excuse and anyone could see it. But now, leaving you out of a party. It's a horror, Miss Rose, plain as the nose on my face. You are the official concubine, after all.
Tea parties and banquets hosted by the palace differed in size and grandeur, but to Cheryl, Kaya, and Rose, who didn't know much about royal affairs, this party seemed like it was fit for the gods.
It isn't fair that I wasn't invited.
With the indignation and embarrassment of being left out landing squarely on her shoulders, Rose pushed herself up from her seat and threw herself onto the silk sheets of the bed, crying into the nearest pillow. Cheryl and Kaya ran to their mistress's side, where the latter pulled a handkerchief from the fold in the pocket of her skirt and tucked it into Rose's hand.
The Queen is just jealous because the King loves you. It's nothing but jealousy, miss, all jealousy.
But Rose continued to sob into the pillow, inconsolable. That was when an idea dawned upon Kaya.
Miss Rose, why don't you dress up and go to the party?
Rosa's sobs hitched, and slowly she turned her tear-stained face to Kaya.
But I wasn't invited. I'll cause a scene. Yes, miss. Yes, you will.
Kaya's grin was devilish.
The gardens, resplendent with their bright array of winter blooms, looked even more inviting than usual, with the day's mouth-watering spread of tiny finger sandwiches, scones and jams, puddings and jellies, all sitting upon silver trays and the finest china plates. At first, the guests were surprised to find a buffet at a tea party, but soon enough, with full bellies and heads buzzing from champagne and gossip, they were happily laughing and talking amongst themselves. Although only noblewomen were invited, the number of guests exceeded my expectations. Apparently, some women of higher and lower rank had pushed in. Nonetheless, I was pleased. I was certain the extra ladies in attendance would surely make my assigned search more likely to be successful. And once this uncomfortable task was over with, I could go back to pretending that Rose didn't exist, and I could stop picturing her and Aldrich together. Before long, one of my ladies-in-waiting whispered in my ear that it was time, and so I stood and clinked my silver spoon upon the edge of the champagne flute I held in my gloved hand. It took but a moment for the laughing and chatter to subside, and for every face to turn upon me. My dearest subjects, thank you for attending to me today. I am grateful for your response to my summons, and I hope that the food, drink, and warmth of the palace is making for a pleasurable winter's day. However, I must admit that I had a certain motive for inviting you all here. His Majesty the King has asked me to provide a lady-in-waiting for his first official concubine, Miss Rose. The words stuck in my throat, and for a moment I could no longer speak. Then, with a forced smile, I raised my head and continued. This is all to be done in a rush. Indeed, this task must be completed before the forthcoming winter solstice, and as such, I cannot search farther than the borders of this capital for such a woman. I ask you, is there anyone amongst you, or anyone of your acquaintance, who would want to be a companion for Miss Rose, to teach her and guide her in the ways of the aristocracy? I held my breath in anticipation, hoping that my worry didn't show on my face. I hadn't directly asked them, who among you wants to be Miss Rose's lady-in-waiting? I couldn't, for although their standards were lower than the nobles of the palace, those who lived in the capital city still held a certain amount of pride in their position. They certainly thought of themselves higher in rank than the nobles of the provinces. Still, I doubted there would be one among them who would want to take a position below a commoner, so I had chosen my words carefully. I was dismayed to find that I was met by silence, broken only by the nervous shuffling of their silk slippers upon the closely clipped grass. As the gravity of my request sank in, the women and young ladies exchanged glances, subtly shaking their heads at one another. Still, I waited. Finally, one amongst them stepped forward. Yes, Your Majesty, my name is Lady Alice. I am a friend of Lady Laura's. I nodded in recognition of her title and friendship, then waited for her to continue. Your Majesty, if you would, I want to help you, but please don't tell the king what I'm about to say. All right, I said somewhat reluctantly. You have my word. You may speak freely, Lady Alice. It's rumored that this Miss Rose is a runaway slave. If she was just a commoner, then perhaps someone may have wanted to serve her. But if the rumors are true, Your Highness, everyone is reluctant. The ladies in attendance nodded, muttering in agreement of this shared rumor and consequences, while their delicate cups clinked in their gloved hands. Lady Alice cleared her throat and continued. Whoever became a lady-in-waiting for a runaway slave would not be able to show their face in decent society, Your Majesty, nor would their family. Even if there was someone suitable for the position, it would be understandable if they didn't want to be caught up in the scandal regardless. In truth, Your Highness, To serve as Miss Rose's lady-in-waiting wouldn't be an honor, but a punishment. I was astonished at the speed with which the gossip had spread throughout society. How had it gone beyond the palace walls? However, it didn't matter. The damage was done. Each and every one of the noble women before me stood with hesitation in their eyes, and they were all waiting for me to either confirm or deny the rumor. In truth, I didn't know what was hearsay and what was fact. "She's nothing but a commoner," I announced to the women, mirroring Aldrich's answer. "The king found her while he was out hunting. She was injured, her leg caught in a trap meant for some fell beast. Out of kindness, the king brought her back to the palace to be healed and cared for. Things, obviously, progressed between them after that." I felt the heat in my cheeks rise, and desperately hoped that the guests didn't notice. Looking out at them, I saw the ladies in attendance nodding politely, but I knew they didn't believe a word I said, because despite their overt acceptance of my explanation, not a single one of them stepped forward. I opened my mouth to plead with them once more, fearing what Aldrich would think of me if I failed at this latest task for his lover, but I never got the chance. A chorus of surprised yelps and hiccups of consternation erupted from the farthest reaches of the crowd, interrupting me. The ladies who stood at the very back, clearly upset by something, jumped and skipped out of the way. Had a beast emerged from the woods? I was worried, and I craned my neck to see. Whatever it was drew closer to me, splitting the crowd down the middle, leaving vexed and chattering ladies in its wake. I stood my ground, waiting for this threat to make itself known to me. With one final push past Lady Alice, the source of the upset revealed itself. Rose. She wore a gown of pale lilac and silver, and had clumsily adorned herself with every jewel Aldrich had gifted her, making her look like a child playing dress-up instead of a stately lady. But it was her face that drew my attention, red and tear-stained, with twigs caught in her hair from where she'd been hiding in the shrubbery. She had clearly overheard all that had transpired moments before. Coming to a stop before me, Rose glared with cold, dark eyes, then turned to the assembled noblewomen. "You know nothing of me," she spat, slurring her words. That was when I noticed the empty champagne flute in her hands. "And I wouldn't allow any of you to serve me, even if you begged. I have the king's love and attention, and that is more than any of you ever will have, even her." With a shaking finger, Rose pointed directly at me. I could feel the rage barely checked within her, the desperation, and it sent a chill down my spine. She opened her mouth to say more, but words failed her. Choked by her emotions, and within a hair's breadth of being overwhelmed by them, Rose instead gathered up her skirts, held her chin high, and marched out of the gardens.
See that button on screen? That's your full story. Tap it and download the Pocket FM app now for free.